Hello, everyone. Checking back in, Prospero.ai stock market live stream. Welcome in here today, everybody. It is Liberation Day. The April 2nd date is finally here, so we will get our tariff final news today. Trump is set to speak at 4 p.m., so just after the closing bell. The markets looked like they were running up in anticipation of this event today, but now they're kind of giving back the gains we had. Everything's coming back to the flat line. We are still green across the board, but the QQQ is up 1/5 of a percent. SPY is up 1/10 of a percent. Dow Jones is as well. The Russell is actually the leader on the day, up almost 1% right now. So everything is green across the board. VIX is in the red, but we are drifting back lower from our highs of the day. Let's check in on Prospero, SPY, and QQQ net option sentiment, which I had been looking at earlier. And the SPY was actually above the QQQ, which was a little surprising to see. So we have to question George about that once he gets in the stream today. And looking at the SPY now, it is at 45 in net option sentiment, which is a big switch from the low single digits and zeros it's been reading most recently. And we're looking at the QQQ now, which is at 16. So very odd switch up we're seeing ahead of our tariff news. There has been some leaks, but I don't think anything is confirmed as of the levels right now, and whether it'll be a blanket tariff to all countries or if it's going to be case by case. But we'll find out soon enough, and it's interesting to see that this isn't happening while the stock market is open. And I want to ask George if that's on purpose, that they purposely did this after the market would be closed, so maybe it could digest things better overnight. Then we're going to get into some stock specific stories. We have OpenAI updating the world on their weekly active users. They've just crossed 500 million, so growing very much so, up from February a lot. I'm wondering if this is actually good or bad for Microsoft, being that OpenAI is currently unprofitable, and the more they grow, uh, I'm not sure if it's actually the more they make or if they're running everything unprofitably right now. It's actually going to need them to raise more money, which I think I just saw a story about them raising even more funds from SoftBank. So, what does that mean for Microsoft? The fact that OpenAI continues to grow and it's seemingly kicked into another gear in the past month in terms of growth. Then we have TKO stock buddying up with Meta, signing a deal for Meta to help them engage fans, become their AI glass partner, just kind of interlocking the businesses together. After Dana White joined the board of Meta, it looks like Mark Zuckerberg and Meta is kind of returning the favor. So those two companies are going to work together. But we've covered the business of sports on this live stream a lot, but we've never really talked about TKO stock. And I'm wondering if it looks good to George. WWE and UFC all under one roof. How does that look as an investment now? Then we have to obviously cover our Tesla, our like standing segment on every stream. It seems like there's just so much news. We got Q1 deliveries today, this morning, which sent the stock lower. But then an announcement came out that Elon Musk is planning to leave the Doge team in the coming weeks. And that sent the stock a lot higher. I think it's up about 5% currently right now on the day. So reacting to the deliveries numbers first, which missed, and then the Elon Musk news. I don't know if you guys missed it, but there was a smaller stock that went public. It actually wasn't through a traditional IPO. It went public through something called a Reg A plus. It's called Newsmax. Let's check in on the shares. It had an insane move yesterday, and it followed that up with an insane move today. Yesterday was green, today is red. Let's see, currently down 75% right now after ripping, I believe it was up like over 200% yesterday at one point. It went public at $10 per share and it crossed $200 yesterday. So absolutely insane move. Hopefully George has some good information, good details, can break it down for us why that stock was able to rip insanely. I saw at one point yesterday it had a larger market cap than Warner Bros. I think it was like $28 billion. So very, very wild move there. I think it was from a lack of liquidity in shares, if what I read was correct, where there was some kind of lockup because it wasn't a traditional IPO, but very, very strange to see that move yesterday. And then we have a couple updates on Amazon. So we've been wanting to get to this Amazon AI story about their acquisition of One Medical, how that's looking now with all of their AI features coming to the market. They acquired that company for 3.9 billion in 2022. And it's funny enough because the topic from this story was going to be like, does this have the potential to be the best acquisition of all time? I think we were going to talk about YouTube too in that segment, but now it came out today that Amazon is one of the bidders for TikTok, along with, which was surprising to me, along with AppLovin, which I had never heard in that category before, and also, hello George, welcome to the stream. Also Oracle, which we've heard before, but so now we get to include that whole discussion with this One Health story or One Medical story. The updates we've gotten on the TikTok looks like Amazon, AppLovin, Oracle are the three contenders right now, and the deadline is April 5th. And Trump was also briefed, or was set to be briefed, on all of this today. So it seems like we're going to get some news probably before the week is over about whether this is going to be extended or any of those companies are going to be chosen. And then we have one final story on Amazon. They are launching a competitor to Starlink. It's called Kuiper Broadband. So I'm not only wondering how this is going to affect Starlink, but a lot of the space stocks that we also follow, like Rocket Lab and ASTS, if this competition from Amazon is concerning for those companies. But George, how are you feeling on Liberation Day, my friend? I saw the SPY and QQQ net option sentiment are kind of drifting higher. Market was front running what we're going to get a little bit today, but it's kind of drifting lower now. So help us through what we're seeing today. What are your thoughts currently?
I mean, it's like, in case we needed more information about how crazy this year is, we now have SPY and option sentiment at 40 and QQQ at 7. So I was even like looking. I added a real estate stock and a consumer cyclical stock today, because that even put me out of my comfort zone. When I've been like risk on this year, I've like hammered like the tech, like primarily tech, but large cap growth names that are just always looking the best in our signals. But when I saw that, I took a bit of a different approach than that. And of course, right when I got in, that's when the market started to take a bit of a turn back down on some of the names I was adding. But no, I mean, it's with the market responding like this, you might say that there's going to be good news coming. But at this point, I don't think we can be that sure at all what this administration is going to do. I don't think anyone really knows until it happens. Otherwise, we would have seen a more prepared market for all of these like tariff announcements that have like sent things, kind of haywire. But the QQQ net option sentiment definitely concerns me, being that low, and that it's kind of disjointed. But as we've seen in the past, that could be a function of the fact that people are kind of loading up more on tech names, tech options on the stock level, and then they're hedging it on the QQQ level because they're taking on more risk that way. But it's very hard to tell with this market, and I'm pretty much positioning myself to be pretty even long short heading into the announcement as a result.
Do you have any thoughts on the timing of this meeting? I thought it might be noteworthy, the fact that it was scheduled to take place at 4 p.m. right as the market's closing. I just don't know whether that's, so the market digests it positively or negatively, or if that was planned, or if it's just happenstance. Do you think there's any coordination there?
I mean, I think these days with like 24-hour trading and after like I don't think when you announce something makes that much of a difference. It's going to kind of like difference. It's going to kind of work itself out. There'll be lower volumes, obviously, but I don't think there's too much. I don't think there's too much to read into it. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is perhaps doing it later if it's like bad news. It's going to be night in Europe. I don't think I don't think that's a very good time. I think it's still like early morning in Asia. So maybe that gets you some extra time.
And so I saw a couple uh, news blurbs come out today, but it didn't seem like anything was like set in stone. Some things I saw were that like the tariffs that are going to be placed today are kind of the cap, and they'll only be able to, they won't ever be increased. They'll only be lowered, if anything. I saw that it's still, the door's still open, that it's going to be like a case by case basis of whether the tariffs are like 10, 15, or 20%, not just a blanket 20. um, so I think that's kind of creeping in some hope for investors, where maybe now if we get a blanket 20, it's going to be actually bearish again, whereas before these stories and before the market today, maybe that was being more so priced in, and now it'll be more disappointed. Do you have any read on how you think the reaction will be?
I mean, I think because of all of the like reciprocal tariffs talk, I don't think like I think there could be a positive reaction initially, but I'm not necessarily expecting that strong of a reaction unless it really surprises um versus expectations. I think it really depends on how, other countries respond. And one of the things we're seeing, it's not just like reciprocal tariffs. Like something that I've had my eye on is that there are a fair amount of countries now selling U.S. debt, like Japan especially, has kind of made headlines doing that, and that ultimately is going to harm the dollar, which doesn't really help um, in terms of like the trade imbalance that we're trying to do better with. Um, I mean, in some senses, it might. I mean, in some senses, it might help if it essentially like lowers the cost of the goods that we're exporting. But I'm more worried about the imports, and that relative cost basis and those kind of transfers, because when you talk about when for example, I've been doing a deep dive on Tesla. For anyone that's curious, I'm doing a space with Whole Mars blog tomorrow where we talk about the ins and outs of Tesla. So I've been doing a lot of research on Tesla, and when I did the research, people were kind of saying that yeah, like the tariffs would help the domestic sales, but um, the inputs to building the cars could end up doing a lot to offset that. So that's where I'd be worried about the dollar until we are, if we're more of a net exporter, which we very much are not right now, then a weaker dollar can help because it's relatively discounted. But anyway, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, I think people should see you kind of have to look at these things outside of just like, are there tariffs back? Because if like other economic warfare takes place, then it might escalate. And I don't think, economic warfare tends to be bad for all parties involved, which is why if Europe and Asia and Mexico and Canada, if a number of people are teaming up on us, that's especially bad, because it kind of is a function of, you can kind of look at it like sanctions, where it's like the more countries are kind of trying to harm your economy, the more that's going to kind of have synergistic effects against you. Which also relatively, if we have like a lot more people ganging up on us, it also, is going to hurt us relatively more than we can hurt countries that are only getting, economic warfare back from us and not other countries. So it's all worth watching. And I think the long and the short of it is it's very hard to react to these things in moments, because we know like a lot of this for the Trump administration it's not about the tariffs as much as just like trying to get the kind of, trade deals or international relations arrangements, it's immigration and some things that we want. So it really, if it's about getting something from these countries that we're putting tariffs into, that's where the reciprocal tariffs get scary, right? Because it's not just about us wanting to put a 20% tariff on Mexico or Canada. It's actually about us wanting to put that on them so they come to the negotiating table and they kind of give us specific concessions that we're looking for. So if that's the goal and they escalate, it kind of means we will escalate further because it's not necessarily about the tariffs as much as it's about the message.
It is interesting that that there's been so much weakness in the markets, and it's all kind of been in the hypothetical as till now because there's been no tariffs actually in place until I think tonight at midnight they go into effect, and I mean, obviously from the market's reaction and a lot of the news coverage, everybody's pretty negative on the situation, but the Trump administration has to at least have some kind of uh, hypothesis of their own. Could we at least, even if maybe you don't like think it's probable or not the most likely outcome, could we at least give their side what could be a bullish outcome of this? Even if it is like you were saying, countries don't team up and they actually like react to the tariffs as in in a way that Trump would want. Is there any kind of bullish case we could give to these?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think makes the most sense is that, and we saw this in his first term, that Trump's real target is China. And what he might be trying to do is he might be trying to, have Mexico and Canada and the European countries and maybe Russia, all kind of create a tougher economic situation for China because they're really like, I think it's especially relevant seeing, DeepSeek and, I think one of the things, we've been researching BYD and all the cool things that they're doing. Like, and we've been talking about it on the stream, obviously. Like, China is in a position where they could potentially, they've always been able to beat on price, but they might be able to beat on price and quality. So that is probably the best outcome. And it could be what the Trump administration is trying to accomplish. They could just be kind of placing all these other tariffs in a way like as a threat. It'd be like, oh, well, if you want to remove, we can all just kind of tariff China. I think that is the biggest upside because China has become a real threat, arguably like a stronger economy, stronger technology industry than us. And if we're going to do something and the world is going to do something on a trade imbalance, we're going to have to work together. Now, to offer a counterpoint to that like upside, I'm not sure, and I guess we'll have to see, but I'm not sure like picking fights with other countries that you want to ultimately take your side in a larger trade war is the right way to go about it. But we don't know the right or wrong way to go about it until that plays out. But I definitely think that's the upside, right? We enter into kind of like a broad multi-country kind of trade war where it's like the rest of the world against China. I think that's the best outcome for our economy and a lot of economies, probably.
So I saw an update from OpenAI on their weekly active users, and it has crossed 500 million weekly active users. So that is up from 400 million in February, so over 20% growth, which I was surprised to see just for the month of March. A couple thoughts on this story. So OpenAI, I believe, is running unprofitably right now, just trying to grow. So I'm wondering if that intense growth is actually good or bad for Microsoft. The fact that maybe that'll hurt their earnings, or I don't know how it would hurt them, but the fact that OpenAI is unprofitable currently, growing that much, I don't know if it'll affect Microsoft in any way. And another thought, I mean, they once you have 500 million active users, like that's such a large user base. Have they won this race? How could anybody catch up? It's almost like they're so big, who could catch them? I feel like they are the Facebook of the AI large language model type of thing. So how do you feel about those two thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, I'd wonder what they're doing in the last few months that's increasing their
I can
user
answer
base.
that for you quickly. They
Oh
came out
yeah.
with they came out with some new feature where you could like make an image into like a live little clip that was very popular.
Oh, yeah. I was at someone's birthday party this weekend and they were just like constantly playing around with that. Yeah, that was okay. I get that now. That's a cool feature. Um, that's a lot of users, but I think your point about the cost is a very important one, right? Because it's like, okay, like scaling is super important, but the ultimate cost is more important, right? If ultimately like OpenAI is not profitable, but let's just say for argument's sake, to run these like they're charging like the free like actually really costs them more like $20 a month. And the $20 a month thing more costs them like $50 a month, right? And then you have potentially DeepSeek, right? That is coming in at lower price points. I don't think people are so loyal to OpenAI or anything um, where uh, cost is not going to be an issue. And I would say the other thing is a lot of people, and we've talked about this, a lot of people have just been doing some research on OpenAI and their expensive agent-based things. And a lot of people that I talk to actually have said that they view uh, um, Anthropic, Claude, as a better product, right? So it's possible just like they have an early mover advantage, but typically the early mover advantage isn't going to last unless you can continue to win on kind of quality and price or at least most of one. But there are switching costs, so people that are used to it, like it could be there, but like yeah, I think things coming out of China are a threat there. And I think why I am sticky with the price, right, is it is Microsoft, right? And Microsoft has a way of annoying people with their monetization. They're also pretty good at it, but like where you kind of have, say, like Microsoft Word, where you're kind of like you buy a PC and you kind of have to use it, or you work in an office and you kind of have to use it, or Excel or whatever. I don't think this is the same type of product. And then you kind of have the added issue of what the real cost is, right? Because like, how many users would you use Meta, Facebook as an example? How many users would they lose if they started charging $5 a month or $10 a month for it? So people can be pretty price sensitive to these things. Again, I don't think it's equivalent, but I think before like before we really know where OpenAI is positioned as a product, I think we really have to know what their long term what the cost is going to be eventually for it.
Well, that is a really good point though, because like I feel if OpenAI had to increase their prices, there's so many competitors, like you're saying, like Claude and Anthropic, that people would just switch. But like if Facebook started charging something, or like there's nowhere to go because Facebook basically owns all of social media. There's TikTok and then all of the Facebook apps. I mean, YouTube is like not really the same as the other social media stuff. And the other Snapchat, like there's no competition really. Um, so I think that is a difference between probably AI and social media that you're highlighting there.
But I'm even saying I'm making an additional point. I'm saying that like even with that, um, I think people would switch from Meta if there was a charge, and I think it's the free version that is particularly vulnerable, right? If there was no more free version of ChatGPT and you could access these other LLMs for free, I think a lot of people would switch.
Do you think that can cause any division between Microsoft and OpenAI, the leadership at each, if they have different ideas of like when it's time to go focus on profitability more, grow more, all those things? Or do you think, I mean, I think Microsoft, led by Satya Nadella, is pretty well-rounded team, so maybe they'll keep that all behind closed doors, even if there is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be at odds. Um, but ultimately companies have to become profitable, right? Like there's a side where like I think OpenAI probably wants to keep it free for as long as possible, but there's another side where like eventually whoever is funding you is going to say um I need to see some profits, right? And the longer you delay that, I'd say the more kind of pressure you are at to profit immediately, right? If you do it before your investors are kind of like beating down the door to have you charge for it, you probably have more time to ramp out, work out the kinks and pricing. Whereas if you like drag your feet and then finally do it and it doesn't do well, that might have your funding cut, very quickly. But on the other side, you could say they just brought in another $50 billion, right? The largest private raise. So when you can fundraise that easily, there's certainly an argument to say keep it free, right? We're in kind of a different era where actually a lot of investors are demanding profitability earlier. But if you're lucky enough that you have the kind of tech where you don't want to, it's certainly easiest to scale your user base if you have a free product that's a good quality like OpenAI has.
So I want to spin now to TKO and Meta. Just a little while back, Dana White, the president and in charge of the UFC, joined the Meta board, and it seems like they're kind of also, interconnecting the other way now. So they announced a multi-year deal. Meta will leverage its technologies, deliver new engagement for UFC fans globally. They became like the AI glasses partner of the UFC. How do you feel about TKO stock? They have WWE and UFC all under one roof. We've talked about kind of the benefits of the business of sports before, but there's really kind of a lack of ways to invest in it if you're an everyday person. So TKO being a public company, its stock, it looks pretty good. It's had a good little run in the past year. So what do you think about it?
Oh, we don't have TKO in Prospero, unfortunately. We'll have to put that on the list to add. I mean, Meta stock isn't responding very well to it, and I kind of take the market as a barometer. This feels like something that was designed to like make a headline and help the companies. I don't know how TKO is doing today. I'm taking a quick look.
Up two and a
No,
half
it's
percent.
doing better than Meta. So maybe it's viewed as better like distribution for them. It's not really working for Meta. But on these types of things, I think you kind of have to see how it goes.
Are you surprised at all? I'm looking at TKO's chart now, up 82% in the last year, up 360% in the past 5 years. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are. Like the business of fighting, it seems like it's very international since like it's like the one universal language all around the world, unfortunately. But any thoughts on it in the landscape of like the NBA, NFL, UFC, WWE? Like, do you think you know, it's been up a lot in the last like years. Is it all priced in now, or do you think you could see growth here for foreseeable future?
I mean, I think there's still growth. I think like the violent sports are like growing more internationally. Um I think for me it's always interesting. I mean, if you think back like to the gladiators, like the tale, like people wanting to watch violence is like a tale as old as time. But uh I think football is kind of like where I cap out on like the violence. There's at least like an illusion. I don't really like to just watch people just like beat each other up. It's pretty brutal. Um I mean, I guess football is pretty brutal too. But no, I mean, I think there's a demand for that, and I think there was a term in Rome called bread and circus, and it it basically just meant that like uh you could you could like have a pretty wealthy class that had like much better rights, everything like that. But as long as you like kept the poor's fed and entertained, the circus part was like the Coliseum, like you'd be good, but you had to like keep that like kind of bread and circus balance. Um, and I think part of what the demand for this is like when we see the wealth disparity grow, and like I think, you know, whatever it is, like suppressed aggression or like want like for whatever reason, I think as people get more displeased with like the wealth disparity, the way like upper classes are versus lower classes, for some reason the tale as old as time, you know, exposing them to violence helps. And maybe, you know, maybe it's just the simplest answer, which is just like, hey, like you could look at these people like beating the shit out of each other and being like, well, you know, my life's at least better than this, where I don't have to like I don't have to like fight to make money. Although they do make a lot of money, I'm sure for some people that's attractive. But like for me, especially like seeing like the old boxers and the way they are, like when they're, you know, a lot of wrestlers like die early. I think that's like like I think that's probably just as much the steroids as the wrestling. Um, but yeah, it's all pretty brutal. But yeah, like I definitely don't see like the wealth disparity thing getting better anytime soon. So perhaps that's an argument that TKO has a lot more room to go up.
I'm happy you mentioned that point because that's what our short is about coming out at 4 o'clock today. So we've had over 1,600 people in here. I hope you all check that out. It's going to be all across our socials. So check that out later. But you say you stop at football, but I bet you would have watched the Mark Zuckerberg versus Elon fight if that ever happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, for a specific reason, what I'm talking about, like what I don't really like about it is the idea that, you know, people have to fight each other for a living, right? Like Elon and Mark do not have to fight each other by any means. Like prideful rich people, I'll watch fight all day long. I just don't like the idea of, you know, someone having, you know, not better options to make money than basically just like taking years and years um off their lives. I think I read an interesting stat. It was something like, I don't remember, it was the SATs or it was something like, I think um if you had like a concussion in your teen years, like I think you were like 15% more likely to drop out or like something like I don't know. It was a crazy stat. Um so yeah, I think making things interesting for people to ultimately just like completely like ruin their brains by getting, you know, hit or, you know, or their bodies or whatever. um I don't love, and I struggle with that in football because it's not really much better um than boxing. But you know, football was part of my childhood, so I can't really, you know, my family all watches it together. I can't let it go. I guess that's a compromise with my morals, but you know, family ties are a pretty strong argument.
So I want to jump into Tesla now because it's been a tale of two stories today. The Q1 deliveries came out in the pre-market and the stock was down. They came in at 336,000, missing the estimate of 390,000. So let's first react to that. Then we're going to get into the Musk story of him stepping away from Doge. But first, the deliveries. How did that make you feel this morning, seeing the stock drop?
Yeah, one of the things that um that I got from like my Tesla deep dive, um other than the very interesting tweet that shows like his Elon Musk's tweet schedule, where it's just like he's barely sleeping. It's crazy. Google it. I think it was shared on Reddit or something. Um but like yeah, that man is spread very thin. I think leaving Doge is going to be good for him. Um but the other interesting thing was, the more I dug in, I was like eyeballing the sales declines in different countries and what they represented. And then I was like looking at the deliveries and I think this delivery number is going to be disappointing. Um, I'm on record as saying that if anyone wants to see the proof, it wasn't an email. As I was prepping for this space tomorrow. But uh, I think what we saw is pretty bullish for Tesla, because I think what we saw is that Wall Street was actually forecasting lower. That's the only explanation for what happened today. Like when I say Wall Street, I mean funds. Like sometimes analysts can be very slow. They were moving down their delivery estimates, but analysts are notoriously slow to adapt, and obviously we saw that. But basically, the only explanation for what we saw today is that other institutions or buy side institutions actually were expecting them to be lower. Now, what I can't grok, I mean, the only thing that makes sense given everything is that people are still expecting what we've expected in terms of favorable conditions for FSD, maybe even some orders for the Optimus coming in from the government, because there's a lot of rumbles that some of the automation that we're going to pursue is going to be in with robots. That's one of the ways that we're going to like raise production, which is just kind of hilarious. It's a very like kind of a modern globalist solution. It's like, oh well, we don't produce anything. Oh, maybe we should do robots. It's like, well, I mean, you're not really solving a labor problem then. You're just making cheaper goods, but you're kind of still fucking over the people in your country. Unless there's a solution that I haven't heard of, but robots coming for more jobs is probably not going to be great for our job market, unless they do the dirtiest word in the in the government's mind, which is universal basic income. That's the only thing that they could basically like do to, like, I'd say, keep things like unemployment, or I guess satisfaction around unemployment at reasonable levels if they convert to robots. So I mean, basically, the stat that I'm working around to be like, okay, there has to be expectations around around this, because even before any of these boycotts, right? Tesla grew at 0.95% last year. And the next highest was Amazon, I think, at, well, here, let me actually pull it up because it's interesting. So yeah, oh sorry, the next highest was Apple at 2%, and then Amazon at 10.99. Yet Tesla has a PE of 139 and a forward PE of 100. And that's on the PE, that's basically 4 to 6 times the next highest PE for a Mag 7, and 3 to 5 times higher on the forward PE, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like that contrast, like the slowest growing company of the Mag 7 is valued at a huge multiple. Typically, what gets you at a huge multiple of the other companies is that you're growing so fast that that's kind of built in to how people are valuing you or how people are valuing the future. So it's a kind of crazy, disjointed valuation that we're seeing, unless part of that is an expectation of revenue growth profits that aren't yet in the forecast. And I think kind of some kind of government advantage, self-driving cars, taxis, full self-driving robots. I think there has to be some of that being forecasted in to support that kind of valuation multiple beyond the other Mag 7.
I don't know if you followed the events in Newsmax at all this past week, but it went public. It wasn't through a traditional IPO. It was through something called a Reg A plus, and it went public at $10. And then yesterday, it crossed the $200 mark, and it had a larger market cap than Warner Bros. At one point. I think it capped out at like 27 or 28 billion. And now it's down 80% today. So the tables have turned. Can you give any insights into like why this happened or what's going on there? Pretty crazy to see that insane volatility.
I don't even know what Newsmax is. What is Newsmax?
the way I heard it talked about on CNBC was it's a right leaning like television news station or broadcast, something like that.
Wow, these like right leaning like stocks, they're so they can be so volatile. Like I don't think I've ever seen a more volatile stock than DJT. And maybe Newsmax will give it a run for its money. Wow, that's like such a peak. And I think it's like, I mean, I think when you look at these stocks, they're just like meme stocks on steroids, right? Because when it hits like the conservative mob, it's like it's an ideology, right? As much as it is an investment, right? And I don't think I've ever said that about another investment. Normally, investments are investments and ideologies are ideologies. But you know, it's got those same aspects of a meme stock, right? Where if you know that these kind of conservative stocks will attract like speculators, ideological investors, like you can feel safe, especially if you're getting in early, that um, that you're going to have backers, right? And the more that happens, and the more people see it, the more that kind of perpetuates. And that's what we see with any meme stock. But, like any meme stock, that's how you can fall so hard, right? If people are speculating on something and they're speculating, like I kind of want to see what the God, Google Finance sucks compared to Yahoo Finance. I kind of want to see do they give financials? They should.
I think I heard something like it does 170 million in revenue.
Oh, you're not even going to tell me. Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy multiple that it's
I,
trading at.
I have a question for you though. Like it seems to me like the volume or like whoever's buying it at the end of yesterday, like who in their right mind when a stock goes from like a $1 billion market cap to like 27 or 28, like even if you're the farthest right leaning supporter, like how could you look at that stock and want to buy it? I don't understand how the stock it feels to me like it has to be like institutionally driven somehow. Like that can't be retail, can it?
Um, I mean, I think institutions are generally deciding what the top on these things are, right? Because they'll start shorting, increasingly buying puts. So, like, I do think it's institutions deciding what the top is. But I think basically what you're getting on that descent, right, is you have a lot of retail buying in, right? Then it starts to go down, and the smart people are just like, party's over, we're gonna get out. It starts to go down a lot more, and then as people lose more and more money, they also exit, right? You see those people getting closer to the top as they're starting to lose like 50%, right? They're just like, no, I can't do this because I think that's the other thing. These ideological investors, a lot of them go in like pretty hard relative to their total net worth. I've definitely heard people talking about going in or like putting a lot of their portfolio in these, like letting it ride, right? So if you're doing that, same thing with meme stocks, by the way. So if you're doing that, right, and all of a sudden you're talking about maybe, 20, 50% of your net worth, and you see that lose 50%, most people don't have the stomach to say it's going to keep going up. So I think that's how it keeps going down. And then obviously once it accelerates, basically like it is, it's the same path like it is when it's going up. You'll basically have institutions continue to buy options until they start to get nervous and feel like it turns, and then they go in the other way hard. And it's the same thing. Like the more momentum that it gets going down, you see institutions shorting more, and buying put options until they've decided that it hits the floor. So I mean, this one I wouldn't be surprised. Like I don't think we'll get it to yo-yo up as much, but I wouldn't be surprised if it hit a floor and then there's buying again, and you kind of see it go in smaller and smaller curves.
I know we're pushing on time here, but any thoughts on TikTok updates we got today? Amazon's making a bid, Apple Oven has a bid, Oracle looks like it's still in the mix. Any thoughts on any of those companies eyeing TikTok?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. If Amazon's involved, like you'd have to think that they have enough money to make a deal. So if Amazon's involved, so I mean, same with Apple, but I feel like Apple is, I think
Not
Apple's a
Apple.
little more fickle. What?
App Lovin. App Lovin.
Oh, Apple Oven. Wow.
Yeah. I know, I was surprised too when I saw that.
Interesting. Oh, is that one of the reasons why it's up today?
I believe
I mean,
so,
I
yeah.
think TikTok's got to be way bigger market cap than Apple Oven. Um, but yeah, that's certainly interesting. Um,
I saw a theory as to why Apple Oven is a good fit. Supposedly they have a lot of business of theirs in China already, so maybe China would be very okay with that kind of transfer when it's really not even leaving the country.
oh yeah, and their tracking software would work very well. I mean, I don't know if it's better than TikTok's existing delivery. I think they're pretty good. But if you're going to make the case that maybe if TikTok, like maybe TikTok America doesn't get the TikTok China algorithms, then a company like Apple Oven or obviously Amazon that has a lot of that thing developed for targeting, I think would be super important. But yeah, like if Amazon's involved and a deal doesn't get done, I think it's because they don't actually want to sell because Amazon can pay. And the thing about it is that's so huge for them because Amazon doesn't, it kind of missed the social media game. And to be able to serve up products on TikTok would just be so valuable to them that I like it almost makes sense for them to give a blank check.
I totally agree. But it is time to do the switchover. We'll catch up with you, George, on the other side in the model portfolio update. Everybody stick here with me. George will be right back. We'll make live moves in the portfolio on this very, very interesting day, taking a live look at the markets. It looks like they are now starting to head higher into the close. Not sure if anything has been announced while we've been live. If you guys know of anything, please let us know in the chat. But let's take a look at the SPY and QQQ net options sentiment in Prospero to see if anything has changed since we've been live. Okay, I have the SPY pulled up. The SPY is currently at 44 in net option sentiment, and the QQQ is at 10. So we're continuing to see that flippening, I'll call it, of the SPY and the QQQ. Now we're in a bit of a role reversal here, although the QQQ hasn't even been that high as the SPY is right now. Even when it was, I guess it spent some time in the 40s over the course of its trend, but typically been lower. But yeah, we are seeing things kind of close out the day on a bullish note. Let's take a look across the market, see what's going on. Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin doing today? Bitcoin is up 2.25% today. Let's see, how are all the Mag 7 stocks doing? Meta and Google are currently red. It looks like all the other Mag 7s are currently up. Let's take a look at, yep, even Nvidia, which I feel like has been one of the more uh, struggling Mag 7 stocks as of late, but they are up today. About to have the 10-minute bell. Usually things move on that, but we'll wait for George to get back in here. We're going to do live updates. If you enjoyed the topics that we covered today, be sure to give us a like, whether you're watching on YouTube or X. Likes are super appreciated. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't yet, or follow on X. Like George said, he's going to be on a big live spaces tomorrow on Twitter. I think it's called Whole Mars Catalog, I believe is the Twitter channel. But it's a big channel that Elon Musk has even retweeted himself before. So maybe we'll get Elon reacting to George tomorrow. That would be insane, but we'll have to wait and see. But now we're just waiting for George to get back in here, and then we'll be on to updating the portfolio. Let's see. Let's see. What else can I look up for you guys in the meantime? Well, we'll see how the market reacts with the 10-minute. Okay, it's a little bit of a downward reaction to the 10-minute till closing. Are you guys going to switch over right from our live stream to the Trump press conference? Is anybody going to be watching that closely today? Or are you guys kind of just ready to just have it be behind you and not going to pay attention? I'm curious. Let us know in the chat.
All right, here we go. Can you hear me?
We got you. Yep.
All right, I was getting everything set
George, I feel
up.
like this is a weird day with like such a big announcements maybe coming in like 10, 15 minutes. Are you feeling like you don't want to make a lot of moves ahead of it, or is there no difference?
No, I'm feeling like what I said at the beginning, which is that I want to balance the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my overarching goal, to be well hedged here.
D. Curtin said, I'm waiting for it to be behind us, not really making any moves at all.
Yeah, I've been I've had a pretty slow week myself. Oh, look, I didn't realize that until, see, this is why you have to look at it. I didn't realize small caps were the big winners today.
Consumer discretionary is making a comeback, but will it be short-lived with the announcement? We will be cautious around that. Industrials looks like a good bull opportunity.
Okay. Always happen. No. Let's get that. Damn, I should have. I didn't know that Coop was going to keep running. Otherwise, I would have. It did so well, but it's on a tear. I really should have added that. It was looking so good in momentum score. I really should have added it. All right, so we have 31 longs. I think we're definitely going to be taking on more longs.
RKT, Rocket Company's just acquiring everything. Redfin, Mr. Cooper.
What?
I think it's because Rocket Companies is acquiring them, right? RKT. And they just announced Redfin as well.
Damn, that is more than I wanted to close out. We might be making a lot of bull ads today. Hopefully we're getting out of shorts too, because I know I have more. Oh God, those ones that we added yesterday were not getting killed on these shorts. Oh, good. We exited though, so not tons of work to do then. That is definitely helpful. looks like after all of that, we will actually be adding shorts. Interestingly enough. Oh, that's the second day in a row I've seen SPY up there. You definitely want that. Did I add SE? I think. No, I didn't add it. Okay. So definitely SE. All right. I think that's actually good because we need to add more shorts. I'm getting rid of that because we have that already. Yeah. All right, what do we have? Don't want too many small caps. Maybe just one of these because it's so low. SNX. All right, I feel good about this. Oh, and let me know what QQQ and SPY and an option sentiment are.
Ready?
Yep.
SPY is 38 and QQQ is 13.
What is it, Liberation Day?
That is what the kids are calling it, yes.
All right, we're going to do that. And then we're going to pull up. I'm just pulling up SPY on another thing to see if it goes crazy. And then I want to look at our current positions. Oh, is BJ a win? Oh, that really turned on us. We might keep it to be defensive. All right, tear. We want to get out of tear. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. All right, we have 6 of those. I kind of want to check out. Oh, damn. Might have missed the boat on this. Can you look up what's going on with ALGT? This feels risky. Oh, well, we probably shouldn't have even added it. Its net options is down to 35. Less than ideal. Okay. I think we definitely want to get S and X in here. All right. Is this a win? Yeah. Okay. So we want to get out of. We're going to cycle out of those tech names. And then what looks good? What's going on? Industrials has been doing well, so I don't know. Aerospace and defense. I don't know if I want to play with that during. Okay. We're just going to. Oh, that's annoying. Kind of like that. I think Tel's pretty big.
Avnish Kavat from X just commented, "Hey guys, I just joined. What do you think of the current SPX situation?"
SPX? Like, I think that's levered SPY, right? I mean, it's been pretty interesting with net option sentiment. I mean, I'm more bullish on. That's why I'm looking for a couple tech shorts right now, because I'm more bullish on non-tech. I'm cycling out of my tech into some non-tech, and then the only other thing is I think I want one more short to balance out my longs and shorts. I kind of want to do beyond, but that just feels too risky. Let's take a look at. Yeah, if anyone's watching, let me know if anything goes crazy with SPY. Oh, I wanted to look at sectors. Anything that looked good to target. Nothing in particular. A lot of industrials. Ooh, I kind of like ALKS. Yeah, all right. That's all my moves. All right, then we exit. What was the last one? All right. All right. I think that is all the moves. Any other questions?
There was just a follow up from Avnish. Do you think SPX is bearish currently? I looked it up. I think it's just the S&P 500 index, like the SPY. Same thing. No
Yeah,
local.
I mean it's showing bullish in net option sentiment. I mean, I'm a little nervous with anytime I see a big divergence in QQQ and SPY net option sentiment, it does make me nervous. But it certainly looks bullish.
George, one last time. What time are you going on that Spaces tomorrow?
4 o'clock. I think
4 o'clock.
if you look at my account or whole Mars blog, we will be starting it.
All right, so everybody tune into that. Oh, I see one more comment actually from Avnish. ES, Eversource Energy.
Let's look at ES. Hopefully it's in Prospero.
It is. I got it up.
Nice technical flow. Good net option sentiment. And the technicals look pretty good on it. I'm just like pulling up the chart. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I would say if you have conviction on this, the Prospero signals can verify that. But I don't think it's.
Yeah, I wasn't going to stop you, but he said it's actually futures of SPX.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean, I think we view those pretty similarly to. We view those pretty similarly to SPY. That it looks bullish, but the low QQQ net option sentiment like gives us caution. But I mean, it's been in a really bullish trend in terms of net option sentiment. I would definitely prefer to own SPY over QQQ, and it showing up in momentum score, which we just saw, is the first time I've ever seen it on the bull side of momentum score. So that's a pretty interesting signal in and of itself.
I think that should be it for today. So everybody remember 4 p.m. tomorrow. George will be live on Spaces. We'll be back here Monday, 11 a.m. on our live stream. But until then, we'll see what comes out of the big announcements today. But best of luck, everyone. See you all then.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.